parents in Pakistan don't want to educate their children.
पेरेंट्स को होता है oh this kid is 12 years old, ये बाहर जाके पैसे कमा सकता है.
That is where we are truly lagging.
What's special about TCF?
We should be worried about the boys. What we did was create a program from scratch for this context. Learning is not just a knowledge gaining process, it's also a spiritual journey. We have 71 million children of school going age in Pakistan.
What was the most difficult decision you've had to make at work? Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Digital Pakistan podcast. My name is Asma Ijaz Khan, your host for today's show. And आज के दिन में हम बात करेंगे एक बड़े interesting topic की. So when I found out about my guest, the funny thing was कि मुझे इनकी organization के बारे में ज़्यादा पता था, but I had no clue कि इसके पीछे जो चलाता है वो बंदा कौन है. And maybe, when we go into the conversation, you'll realize that it's a good thing or it's a bad thing. That you and me will learn that together. But it's a very important topic, education. And, since we always talk about the future of this country and where we're going to go and how we're going to get there, I feel like education was something that was very important and it was imperative that we touch upon it sooner in the conversation. So without further delay, let's welcome our guest. Thank you so much, Zia Akhter, for joining us for this conversation.
Assalamualaikum ji. Thank you so much for having me. It's really a privilege.
Yeah, so we've heard a lot of good things about you. So the thing is, one of my besties, they recently joined his company. And वहाँ से मुझे पता चला कि, TCF, even though, I've heard about it so much, I know they do a lot of great work. But because of him, now I found out a little bit कि पीछे, back end पे, there are so many people working tirelessly to make sure कि ये organization अच्छे से चले. So with you, we'd like to explore a bit more about that. But before, अब हमारे यहाँ पे एक ट्रेडिशन है कि हम गेस्ट को खुद इंट्रोड्यूस नहीं करते हैं. लाइक योर डेजिग्नेशन एंड नेम, दैट्स इट. बाकी वीड लाइक टू हियर फ्रॉम यू who you are as a person, how did you get to this point, and was this always a dream? Yeah, things just happened.
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Zia Akhter Abbas और मैं TCF, the Citizens Foundation का CEO हूँ. I've been with TCF for about 11 years and only 6 months of that as CEO. The rest of it has been various other roles which I can talk about. But I'm the person who shifted at 40 years of age to the non-profit sector after 17 years in banking. Mm-hmm. And that journey and that shift is a big part of who I am, but also, the conversation whenever things come up about, my journey. So I grew up in Karachi. I was very exposed to social service and social change and education from the beginning. But like a typical middle-class person, one has to figure out where to get the next paycheck. And that led me to banking, and I'm the accidental banker for 17 years. It was a detour which never ended. But I gave myself a deadline that, at 40, I'll do what I wanted to do, really. And TCF is that kind of platform where, it allows you to be your authentic self. And really to see how a person with time, talent, and an intent can have an impact on one's immediate surroundings. So I'm very, very grateful to be part of the institution. It is not an accident that you don't know about me or even the founders. Maybe a lot of people wouldn't know who started TCF, because really we've kept the organization up front and the people as far behind as possible. And part of that is really for you and myself to be able to individually own TCF. And so that's a big part of what the platform is. Today, I'm the CEO, but for the last 10 years or so, I've been involved in 3 main things at TCF. One is finding the money to run these schools. We have more than 2,261 school units today, more than 320,000 children studying in these schools today. And to fund that activity, we raise more than $55 million a year.
Wow, so that's a very big number.
Right. So that kind of sweat-inducing work was the bulk of what I was doing for the last decade, but also involved in the strategy piece for TCF and our partnerships with the government especially. So that's what I've been doing.
But education was something that, was always a focal point for you. आप कह रहे हैं ना कि social services and all these things mattered to you. But why did you choose education specifically? Because अगर आप इतने सालों से TCF में हैं, तो इसका मतलब है it means something, right?
Oh, it was very, from जो कहते हैं ना होश संभालने की घड़ी से. I saw my mother run a school in a what would call a low income community in Karachi. And the funny thing is that she was one of the founding team, and she would go door to door collecting money to run that school. It was mainly for women.
Okay.
And fast forward 40 years hence, I tell her that, bulk of what I do is also go all over the world raising money for running
Yeah.
schools. I think, in our life, we kind of try our best to come up to the standards that our parents have set for
Yeah.
ourselves. And they may be visible to them or not, but you're always trying to make that happen. So I think implicitly I was always drawn to education and social service, but also my own journey was funded by people I don't even know through scholarships,
Oh, okay.
in Canada at LUMS. And I think that urge to kind of, who do I pay this forward to, kind of leads you to question, okay, now that I have enough, what do I do with myself and whatever God has given me? So I think education, and particularly TCF, was just the answer to that urge.
इंटरेस्टिंग. अच्छा, तो यार हमारा जो फॉर्मेट है ना वो थोड़ा टाइम लाइन बेस्ड है, पास्ट प्रेजेंट एंड फ्यूचर, सो आवर क्वेश्चंस आर आल्सो गोइंग टू बी अराउंड दैट. वील स्टार्ट ऑफ विद द पास्ट सेगमेंट. आपने बोला कि you've been at TCF for a while, so even if you weren't one of the founding members, you know exactly कि किस वजह से ये बना और कैसे चल रहा है. So the idea of TCF for me is like, it's just ordinary people coming together to do something extraordinary, right? Because donations पे चलता है and all that. जब आप लोग कम्युनिटी में जाते हैं, what was like the initial days या moment of realization where you thought कि हाँ ठीक है, community में there is this desire for people to come together to do something good, and that good basically has to do something with education. How did it even start?
Sure. So I think the line you just used, ordinary people coming together, do extraordinary things, is such a good reflection of what TCF is and how it started. It's just a group of friends, and you must sit with your friends. I used to get together in our private time, just kind of fulminating and wondering and agonizing over Pakistan and what society is and where it's going. And you wring your hands and you have a meal and then you go home. But here were 6 friends who were meeting every Wednesday. They used to call it the Wednesday Club. Food was, I'm sure, a big attraction.
Yeah.
But they were also coming together to talk about Karachi at that time in the mid 90s, which was fraught with violence and kidnapping and poverty and all the problems that you can imagine. So they would come up with, what should we do as a response? And somebody said, health is a big problem. Somebody else said livelihoods. They tell us privately and not completely as a joke that they were even thought for a moment about coming up with a vigilante army to fight all these
Okay.
kidnappers. But net, they eventually realize that education is at the root for a lot of these problems. And if you really want to sustainably impact the future, you cannot change the system without changing communities, and you cannot change communities without changing the hearts and minds of individuals. So that theory of change really was at the heart of it. They did an atypical thing. They pulled some money together and made 5 schools in some of the slums of Karachi, places that they had never been as they were growing up. And the second atypical thing they did was they went around saying, we're going to build 1,000 of these.
Wow.
And that big, hairy, audacious goal, when you're confronted with it, your first response is, come on, like, 1,000,
Yeah.
nobody's done it. And privately, they tell us, we never imagined that it'll actually come to 1,000. But the idea was that it has to be big enough to address the scale of the problem we're facing and get everyone's attention on it. In 2014, individuals, companies, groups, communities came together to build the 1,000th school in
Wow.
2014. And today we have 1,700 of our own and another few hundred that we manage for the governments in Punjab and Sindh especially. So really 2,261 units came about because individuals felt they had a bite-sized solution to the bigger problem. They felt that this was a platform that they could come to where the organization or the institution would take care of sustainability, of operational excellence, of real impact. And they in their lives couldn't actually go down to that community and engage with them in a continuous way. So that bridge, I think TCF was able to provide in a credible way, both to people here and people all over the world. Everybody wants to really have a positive impact. And sometimes you just need to make the road to that place.
It's so interesting and fun because sometimes, we discredit these conversations at chai that we have क्योंकि होता है ना, people sit together and talk about business ideas. But sometimes such great things happen because of these conversations. So, अब आप यहाँ तक तो पहुँच गए, but obviously the journey wasn't easy. किसी से पैसे लेना is not an easy thing, right? And fine, Pakistan is a country where people want to give up money for good things and all, but trust lena unka and credibility build karna, all these things take time. So how was that journey?
Yeah, I can tell you as I was coming, I'd built my banking career without going through sales. And I told the founders and the CEO at that time that, मुझसे कुछ करा लें, fundraising न कराएं. I can't imagine myself asking for money. Um, you have to think of it not as asking for money or as selling anything. If you genuinely go down to a TCS school, and that's how these guys got me, when you see those teachers especially doing it almost like a religious duty, and those kids, when we were in school, we had to be dragged to school, right? These kids are dancing to school, and they're excited at the opportunity to have a space and people who are focusing on them. So I think it you just feel like you're telling that to the world. You never really feel like you're asking for money. And the fact is that, when they started, the founders particularly and all the early supporters, they were all people who didn't have to do this. They had businesses, they were well to do mostly. For them to stake their personal reputations, their time, and their network in this way meant that people give to people. People don't just give to an organization or institution. Even if you are TCF, at the end you're giving because you have somebody in your mind that you've met or seen, even if it's a student's face that you've seen in an ad. And that, I think, visceral contact even today is a big part of our fundraising. So like I said, we raise a lot of money globally, but the number of people who are employed to ask for money is less than 20 globally. There are lots of people who are there to make receipts or prepare reports, but the people who sit in front of people asking for money are so few, because what our core job is to engage an entire army and a movement of volunteers all over the world who, like the founders, are people who don't have to do this, but then they give anywhere from a day of their lives to all their waking hours just to work and fundraise for TCF. एंड वो बहुत मुश्किल काम है, किसी से पैसे मांगना, अपनी ईगो को, नफ्स को बिल्कुल वो करना पड़ता है. But I tell you, like, everyone I've met and myself also, we have received more from it than anything we've given to it. Because the act of, asking makes you much more grounded and puts you in perspective, कि आप इस पूरी सिस्टम में आपकी हैसियत क्या है और आपका रोल क्या है. So it really kind of has given us a lot of, in our personal lives even, a lot of dividend.
And you must find a lot of inspiration and motivation within your job also, right? When you go to these schools, you're like, oh, if I have to do this job that maybe is a little difficult, but look what it gets me.
And like, I mean, I'm part of an institution which is now 30 years old. This is our 30th year.
Wow.
And so the benefit of that is you actually have these kids, young women and men who've gone through the journey and are now parents themselves and living their lives here, abroad. They're, senior leaders in their organizations now. Mashallah, they've taken their families out of poverty, but now they're lifting their neighborhoods. So when you see that, you feel energized, and you're like, mere liye to, it's had a ripple effect, not just on myself, but my children. When they see that this is a path of how to live life, right? I feel like younger people today have seen more alternatives and allowed themselves to take more risks than, for instance, we did when we were choosing what to do with our life, and that's a great thing that has happened.
So, एक चीज़ जो मुझे हमेशा होती है ना, sometimes money is not the only problem when it comes to education, right? So I'm from KPK, and education for me is very important in the sense that my mom wasn't allowed to go to school, even though उनका इतना बड़ा ड्रीम था. She's 50 something now, but she still talks about it. So how did you not just address the issue of money, but in these underserved communities talk about the mindset as well?
I think this is a really important conversation, especially when you think of how the problem is perceived globally. right? People in Pakistan and abroad think that parents in Pakistan don't want to educate their children.
Hmm.
The fact is, wherever we go, and this includes places which are, let's say, in the newly merged districts on the border of some villages where that this village has produced really violent and militant people
Yeah.
in the past, but even there we run schools for girls. What parents have found is that there are real obstacles to sending their children to school. For instance, for a child who's a girl, the first obstacle is money. These are poor households. So, you know, part of just economic planning is how do I prioritize? And they
हाँ.
end up prioritizing boys. In TCF schools, we have equalized that you don't have to pay extra. If you're sending one child, you pay roughly the same as if you're sending four. That's a sliding scale of the tiny token fee that we charge.
Okay.
So affordability gets taken out of. The second thing is, distance. For every 500 meter that a girl child has to walk to school in Pakistan, female enrollment drops by 15%. So imagine if you are a father, even if I put myself in their shoes, if you're not able to assure that my child, my daughter will reach school safely, even I will think twice about sending her if I cannot guarantee it. And the third thing, when she reaches the school, what is the school like? What's the environment in the school? Is she going to be safe? Child protection is a massive thing all over the world. And the fact is that many of our schools are not safe.
Yeah.
So, how do you build not only a safe environment, but an environment which is seen to be safe? So, very early on, TCF decided to have only female teachers and principals in their school. Today, we have more than 16,000 faculty members. And with other sort of non-faculty female staff, we are perhaps the largest employer of women in the private sector in Pakistan.
Hmm.
So that kind of school
Yeah.
allows a parent to have a real conversation with a principal who's coming to your house and inviting you to come and see for yourself how it is okay for your daughter to come. I think where we are as a country and a society, that heavy lifting has to be done, and many parents have to kind of take that leap of faith. Their generations before have not done it. And often it happens that, the parent who does it first, society kind of zeroes in on them. How could you do this? How could you send
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
daughter? The image you can sort of, conjure up is you send your daughter to school. She goes through school and becomes capable of becoming a teacher. Then a TCF van rolls up one fine day, stops in front of your house. Madam walks out, sits in the back, the driver drives off.
Yeah.
And the entire village sees something just happened here because only of education.
Hmm.
It's not just about empowerment as a you know educated person. It's also dignity. It's also, how can I make an impact on others, not just myself? So I think that has now become so visible that even in villages where we go, we have waiting lists and lines outside of our doors when people see a functioning school there.
But it's a long journey, right? बहुत patience के साथ आप लोग यहाँ तक पहुँचे. It's not something you change overnight किया. You go and teach someone in a culture that what you're doing is not right. ऐसे नहीं आप ऐसे करें. So yeah, that's very interesting. I was looking while I was researching for this. तो आपकी conversation I came across जिसमें you said कि people very often talk about the गर्ल्स दैट दे सफ़र, बट बॉयज़ को हम अक्सर इग्नोर कर देते हैं बिकॉज हमारे यहाँ चैलेंज ये है कि अगर आप लो इनकम हाउस होल्ड से हैं तो पेरेंट्स को होता है ओ दिस किड इज़ 12 years ओल्ड, ये बाहर जाके पैसे कमा सकता है, सो वाई डोंट आई जस्ट एम्प्लॉय इन अ मैकेनिक शॉप, मैं इसको दुकान पे बिठा दूँ तो ये पैसे लाना शुरू कर देगा तो हम सबकी लाइफ बेहतर हो जाएगी. तो इस तरह के मसलों को आपने कैसे एड्रेस किया है?
I think both boys and girls. In fact, we've just done completed a study, and the report is about to come out. It's funded by the Gates Foundation, and we went back to communities where we'd been running a school for more than a decade, more than 15 years. How has that impacted the attitudes about girls' education, about female role in the workforce? We were going in with a gender lens, but really looking at women. The researchers came back and said, the women are doing really well, and social norms are fundamentally changing. But by the way, we should be worried about the boys. And what's happening with the boys, and when I say this would not come as a surprise. From a very early age, we tend not to see them as individuals as much as agents of future sort of sustainability for the
Yeah.
household. The boy is more as boxed in or more as the girl
Yes.
into a certain role. Sure, they have mobility outside of the house, but they're only supposed to go to places where they can bring something back. So when I speak to teenagers in TCS schools, even who are, let's say, going through eighth, ninth, they're working already. And the path they see in the future for themselves is really restricted by that economic imperative.
Hmm.
Um, I think we also have a crisis for role models for boys. And what does it mean to be a positive young man in today's society? So I think even as we celebrate the girls' success and afford an all-female faculty, we as an institution are thinking, how do we provide positive male role models for these
Hmm.
boys as well? And I think building pathways which, of course, address the economic challenges the household has, but also give room for this individual to grow as a person, that's also something that we are really grappling with as we speak.
Interesting conversation. Now, before we move into the present segment, we would like to get to know you a little bit more as well. So, we will move towards our first gaming segment, which is called Up Close and Personal. I'll ask you a few questions. You have to give me quick replies. Are you ready?
Sure.
So what was the most difficult decision you've had to make at work?
I think there are difficult decisions every day because resources are finite.
Hmm.
And these young men and women have dreams, which we have, frankly, nurtured in them. We can what we do post our matriculation is we support many of them for scholarships for
Yeah.
university study, etc. And often we have to say no. That kind of decision is a daily kind of wrenching thing. But I can tell you, for me, the hardest thing I had to do was say no to a foundation who was willing and ready to give us a lot of money, um, just because we as an organization felt that even though they believed it, we would probably not do as much justice to that donation or that grant as others might. It was very difficult to let go of that opportunity, but I think that has kind of defined our inner culture to be authentic and to say what we truly believe internally and externally.
What's the most unusual job you've had?
I mean, from a job perspective, I decided after 10 years of working in a bank that I'll go into and run a learning center for a bank.
Hmm.
I had run a business with 2,500 people. And then the next day, I turned up at a learning institute for this bank with, I think, 11 staff members. And they didn't know what to do with me. And everyone was wondering, this person is going through a midlife crisis, which is perhaps possibly true. But it was a really rewarding kind
But
of
education
experience.
was really important to you. कहीं ना
That's
कहीं
true.
तरीके से you
That's
found your
true.
way back to
That's
it.
true.
What's your favorite Pakistani tech startup?
Oh, I love all the startups which are trying to solve for female mobility.
Hmm.
I think in urban centers, we are struggling just because we have this incredibly talented resource base of individuals who are cooped up in their homes. And because of safety and dignity issues and affordability issues, these girls are not able to make it to workplaces where talent isn't, really, high demand. So I think mobility is a game changer.
Yeah, very important. If you could trade lives with anyone, who would it be?
I wouldn't trade my life right now for anyone.
Wow.
I mean, I'm living my dream right now because
Signs of
this
a very
is
satisfied person, which is very rare that we get to see that.
yeah. I'm
So, what's the one thing that you hate about your job?
I think what is very a big part of my job. There are a large base or a group of people in the schools and around the schools. These are our students, our parents, our their families and communities. Any minute spent with them is a learning and an inspirational kind of opportunity. On the other side, people who volunteer for us and support us are another massive community and another part of my role as well. But running a 24,000 people organization with systems, money, process, all of that pulls me away from both of those things. So I think the toughest part of my job is to fix the machine. The
Yeah.
minute it can liberate me to be with those people, I think that'd be fantastic.
Interesting. If you were a superhero, who would you be? Although I would say, in some terms, you kind of are running an organization like this, but still.
I think I would say I would pick any one of my founders.
So
There are
sweet.
three of these gentlemen who are still very active. Ehsan Salim Saab, who's our chair, Mushtaq Chapra Saab, who's led fundraising efforts for TCF all these years, and Ateed Riaz Saab, who is like the inspiration behind our educational and cultural kind of frame. Each one of these, in our view, is such a larger than life figure, especially because they don't act like it. And I mean, I would love to be in their shoes and be able to see a dream fulfilled in their own lifetime.
It's so interesting and amazing that even after 30 years, those people who are in that cafe trying to make a plan are still so like, attached to it
Yeah, and
and
they're a
driven.
call away. If
Yeah.
I have like not even a big donor, if I have a volunteer who I need them to meet, they will offer their time, even though they're running companies and they're parts of many nonprofits now.
Yeah.
But and they'll go across the world for this cause.
So what's the most daring thing you've done in your career?
I think leave banking for
बड़ा
TCF.
वैसे इंटरेस्टिंग स्विच है from proper capitalist वो से आप जो है ना
Totally.
social services में आ गए and I was like yeah.
I think although it is frankly not as hard and not as people think that let me say this out loud. I had a friend who came to me after I'd made this switch and was like, "Do you get a salary?" So I do get a salary.
Okay.
It's a much smaller salary than I was getting in banking, but it is enough. And I think that concept of what is enough is every person's enough is different. But do you have a enough? Do you have a number or a lifestyle which is okay for you? If you can put your finger on it and say, this is enough, then there's a world beyond it which liberates you.
Do you have a secret talent?
It's not gonna be secret. I can't call it a talent, but I am often called out by my own team to sing.
Oh wow.
But it's not a talent.
Maybe you could
It's
like do a bit of singing for us in the end.
absolutely not. your podcast would go through the gutter if I did.
What's the one thing that you regret?
I think so much of this comes back to this decision, but I see young people now, and I see them engaging with their passions with much more courage. Part of it is because this world is different, and there are gigs, and the concept of doing multiple things. You feel like there'll always be something that a net that will catch you.
Yeah.
I think very early on in my career, I was led by fear rather than opportunity. And I wouldn't have spent maybe as much time in banking as we did if I was not.
Basically, I feel like there's a bit of more social freedom now. People don't care as much about what other people are saying.
And you guys, frankly, have normalized those choices, right?
Yeah.
I think all of us, when I interact with people, I see even people in companies kind of like, this is possible. And same when I meet young people and I'm like talking to them about how do you save? You come to a nonprofit really early on. Do you
Yeah.
have a place, that you figured out, where you live, etc. They're designing their life differently. And then I'm like, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that I think just the fact that multiple pathways are available now is fantastic.
And the last question is, what's one piece of advice you'd give your younger self?
I think my focus on so this is going to be very specific, but it's not just for banking, and it's true for everyone who is in any career really. When you're starting out, you focus a great deal on the what, the technical aspects of your role, performing it really well, and that's really important at that stage. It's important not to wrap your identity around it. I used to be a product manager for credit cards. It's such a complicated product. I thought if I was just the most knowledgeable person about credit cards in this space, I'd be set. very soon you grow to a point where it's absolutely irrelevant. But
Hmm.
if you're still caught up in it, your journey is constrained. Soon you have to get to a point where you're dealing with people. And actually, what you realize is most of growth, personal and professional, is being able to deal with people and manage stakeholders, manage diversity in those stakeholders. So I think I would. It's very kind of professional advice, but I would go back and not and tell myself not to wrap myself up too tightly in how much I know.
Interesting. You did really well on the segment. Now, moving on to the next segment, the present. Before we talk about TCF and how it is operating right now, I want to know from your end, कोई ऐसे दो तीन चीज़ें जो आपको लगता है it's your way of giving back to the community and makes you happy and proud that you've done it?
Me personally,
Yeah.
um, I love to teach. And I think if I think of giving back, I mean, it's very obvious what I do with TCF. So I'm almost forcing myself beyond that. I don't think I have spent enough time, as much as I would want to, with young people, especially people sort of between 15 and 20
Mm-hmm.
when they're trying to figure out their life. Um, I would love to do more of that. And I think the few opportunities I got to do that, teaching at IBA for a spell or mentoring some people, I got a lot out of it. So I think we sometimes think of people developing or breaking out of challenging circumstances as a very functional, sometimes even economic issue. When you talk to TCF graduates who've been successful, and success is a many splendid thing, they tell you at that point, this bhai or this appa came to us and mentored us.
Yeah.
And what they said changed my life. And this is not them being dramatic or saying something for the camera. They actually mean the penny dropped. If you can have that kind of impact, and that doesn't take money, it just takes time and actually a level of ownership and care. So I think that is a truly special way of giving back. And TCF thrives on that and really is driven by volunteers who do that. We have a massive volunteer program called Rebel, where normal people like you and me come in and mentor eighth graders just as they're trying to figure out their life and show, essentially the purpose is to take them from a victim mindset to one of agency and strength. And the impact that program has on individuals is just remarkable.
A lot of these kids must have a lot of confidence issues also, right? जो आप एक छोटे घर से आते हैं, आपने कोई अच्छी चीज़ें देखी नहीं होती हैं. Sometimes it's hard to imagine yourself doing bigger things.
जी बिल्कुल. आप ये सोचें कि जब बच्चा आता है केजी में, this massive, we build beautiful schools, we build purpose built schools with everything you can imagine in a school. वो सहमे सहमे अपनी कुर्सी पे बैठे होते हैं, because in the life they are 8-10 people to a small room. They step out of that and there is an alleyway in an urban setting where they're fighting for space between people, animals, traffic, danger. And then they come into a space which is for them and people who are only focused on them. So that time and space is suddenly liberating. And they have a sort of cognitive dissonance. Am I supposed to be here?
Yeah.
Am I entitled to this? So half of what we do is just taking them out of that and saying, you are entitled to everything that I or anybody else said. And I think once the young person leaves school with that kind of, wind in their sails, actually they find their way. It's the drive which typically is the biggest challenge.
So you don't just have to teach them ABC and 1, 2, 3, right? It's also about this social learning as well. Interesting. Just so when I was researching about TCF, digital literacy program के बारे में काफ़ी आया because we talk about digital. Everything is digital in this country आजकल, right? That's like the buzzword. So what is your contribution? What are you doing differently compared to other schools वगैरह, or some things that maybe आप सबसे पहले ही कर रहे हैं मुल्क के अंदर? But digital literacy, when it comes to that, what's special about TCF?
Sure. So this is just the part where we are trying to prepare our students for a very digital world. We realize that the right age to start doing that, both from what the child can absorb as well as what we can deliver, is maybe grade 6, 7, 8, the
Okay.
middle years. So what we did was create a program from scratch for this context, which really aims to familiarize them and make it easy for them to access technology. Second, be able to do basic stuff with technology such as operate Microsoft Office, this, that, being able to operate a digital kind of device. But then how to actually think in an analytical and computational problem solving way. So we get these kids to start programming in a basic thing like Scratch. They have this little cat on the screen, which they need to instruct how to move, how to draw a circle, how to perform some tasks. I go into our DLP sessions and I ask a young girl to explain it to me, and I'm usually left far behind, and she thinks it's so simple. That level of, being able to inhabit the digital world, and then to also tell them, what does it mean to live your life in this space? What does privacy mean? What does responsibility mean? All of those things we're trying to inculcate in those 3 years. We've created a curriculum which is bilingual and trained teachers all over Pakistan, right, on how to deliver that. We've created spaces actually with the help of Jazz. We furnished many of these digital labs with their help, and what we've done is provide a tablet to every individual to be able to tinker on their own and learn on their own. But that's how we imagine kids can kind of get the agency to learn within this space themselves. I went into a classroom, a DLP lab once, and they brought out this seventh grader who had created a game. I'm like, we're not teaching anyone to create a game. Like, of course not. मैंने YouTube से सीखा है. मैंने कहा YouTube से कैसे सीखा है? तो YouTube से एक दफा फेमिलियरिटी हो गई थी,
हाँ, you
और
opened
फिर
up
मैंने
their
भाई का
minds.
मोबाइल लिया और फिर उससे मैं सीखता गया, मुझे शौक था तो मैंने कर लिया. That kind of finding your path, right? That is what, frankly, the biggest impact digital technology has had on learning, this agency. And I think if we can unlock that impulse, that'll be great.
अच्छा, हम डिजिटल पाकिस्तान के बारे में बात करते रहते हैं. द मिनिस्टर इज़ वेरी पैशनेट एंड वोकल. आजकल भी देयर इज़ अलॉट कमिंग इन द न्यूज़. बट बिकॉज आप बिल्कुल ग्राउंड लेवल पे बच्चों के साथ काम करते हैं, डू यू थिंक एज अ नेशन वी आर एट दैट लेवल जहाँ पे इतने बड़े जो हमारे एम्बिशंस हैं उनको अचीव करने के लिए एक नेशन जो है वो डिजिटली प्रिपेयर्ड भी होनी चाहिए? इट्स नॉट जस्ट अबाउट हैविंग टिकटॉक इन माई फोन, राइट, कि इंटरनेट आता है, टिकटॉक डाउनलोड कर लिए. इट्स मोर अबाउट मोर देन दैट. डू यू थिंक वी आर देयर येट, या देयर आर स्टिल गैप्स दैट वी नीड टू फिल?
I think we are already lagging behind where our people want us to be. I was sitting with a bunch of principals, and we're doing this pilot with Khan Academy, where we're using their AI kind of capability, Khan Migo, for teachers to be provided, self-led coaching. And in this training, they had a break. There are 3 principals sitting there, and I asked them, I wanted to check how familiar they were. तो आपको AI और चैट जीपीटी वगैरह से फेमिलियरिटी है? दे वर लाइक, ऑफ कोर्स है. तो आप क्या करती हैं? मैं समझ रहा था कि वो रेसिपीज देखती होंगी या व्हाटएवर, एंड दे स्टार्ट गिगलिंग. लाइक, कुछ भी नहीं, हम तो बातें करते हैं, उससे हम टाइम पास करते हैं. दिस इज दैट एम्बेडेड इन पीपल्स लाइव्स.
Yeah.
सो what I'm trying to say is, when your structure or your system is not providing solutions to so many problems, and technology is a path to solving those problems, people will find their own way. But they still need the road to travel on. They still need devices, they need connectivity, they need power, they need a certain level of basic, the track on which this train can run. So I think that is where we are truly lagging. In our footprint, like you said, we are on the ground in 1,000 of the most challenged communities. If we resolve today, and we are resolving today, to make all of those schools online, there is a significant percentage of those locations where connectivity still is not assured in any reasonable quality where we could unlock the power of AI or whatever. And if that is the case, then we have to solve it very quickly, because technology can be a big leveling and force, and a force to which creates greater equity. But the absence of it can also create great inequity and exacerbate the gaps we have between the people who have, I can use ChatGPT for free. I can take the $20 account, but there's somebody who's a $200 account. and the AI they're getting access to is intermediated by money. So I think that is where we really need to kind of open doors for our people and be kind of confident that they will find solutions to their problems which are very relevant solutions if we can just enable the basic ecosystem.
So we often say that the biggest strength of this country is the younger population, youth segment हमारा बहुत बड़ा है. But then it also makes me wonder if you're not able to teach them the right things at the right time. कुछ ही अरसा है वो निकल गया तो फिर उसके बाद all these hopes and dreams that they will save us, कहाँ जाएंगे फिर हम?
जी बिल्कुल। मुझे तो उससे भी एक ज़्यादा फंडामेंटल क्राइसिस ये लगता है कि हम समझ रहे हैं कि हम उनको नॉलेज या लर्निंग के लेवल पे छोड़ रहे हैं या डिसएडवांटेज छोड़ रहे हैं। आई थिंक वी आर डैमेजिंग देम एट अ मच मोर फंडामेंटल लेवल बाय this gloom and doom and this constant kind of dark cloud that we are kind of painting. I think we have a crisis of confidence and hope actually, which makes young people across economic strata, I want to say, very kind of um, uninvested in the future. They're very kind of unsure of how the future will be, and especially whether it'll be positive. I remember this was not the level of ambivalence or ambiguity that we held about the future. We kind of knew that we could do something.
Yeah.
So I feel that is a fundamental issue. In terms of learning, I agree. I think we have 71 million children of school going age in Pakistan, and 7 out of 10 children of school going age are either out of school or they are in school but not even learning at grade level how to read or write or do basic math. You cannot construct a country or a society like this.
Yeah.
And I think we just, instead of being aghast at the state of affairs, we need to just draw a line back into the inputs and say this is really not going to result in anything better. Until we solve this,
Yeah.
society or the nation is not going to be better off.
I want to talk a little bit more about your collaboration with Khan Academy. आपने कहा AI in classroom आप ले गए हैं. So when you talk to those teachers, उन्होंने ऐसा जवाब दिया. How are you then trying to make sure that these teachers are not overwhelmed by AI, but can, like other regular people, use it to do their jobs better?
I genuinely feel being overwhelmed is a smaller risk. There are risks, however. There is a risk of sort of abdication of your mental processes and just over reliance on AI. I see that happening in the office. That can happen in the classroom as well. I see us um, losing losing a lot of our thought process to models which are essentially not indigenous, where you don't have the data residing here, where you don't have privacy or even control over how your data is used. I think that is really also dangerous when you think of this technology being in the hands of much more vulnerable populations. I also think there is, learning is not just a knowledge gaining process. It's also a spiritual journey. It's a moral journey. And today our AI models are constructed in moral and spiritual and intellectual contexts which are not necessarily native to our society. And this is not us being parochial. This is us just recognizing that the AI is being trained on a set of data which is different from our cultural context. We must build our muscle enough to be able to say we will provide culturally relevant AI or data sovereignty within the AI space to our people. If we can do that, I think it's a huge enabler. I mean, I want to paint a picture of, let's say, a really struggling teacher in a remote location. That is the teacher you have.
Yeah.
You can't wish that you had a better qualified, more experienced teacher. You can train that teacher over time, but that is the deficiency. Now imagine if that teacher has a coach or that student has a tutor who can speak in their language.
Yeah.
Who, the knowledge that you're supposed to kind of impart is not rocket science, but the connection and the engagement is. So a tech-enabled, less qualified teacher could be more potent and capable than a more qualified, less tech-enabled teacher in our experience. And if we can make that happen, the math gap, the science gap, even the spoken English gap can be really traversed. So today, for instance, we run classrooms in the deserts of Thar, where the teacher is sitting here in Islamabad and the students are sitting in Thar. It's hugely challenging and expensive sometimes to just connect them. But once they are connected, you address that issue of deficiency and gap in teacher capability.
Yeah. So I have this thing कि मैं, when I work in a company, and sometimes what happens is कि not everybody is seen as an ambassador of that organization, right? But in your organization, क्योंकि touch points इतने ज़्यादा हैं, आपका सबसे बड़ा जो chunk है वो आपके teachers हैं, principals हैं. So how these people perform, do their day-to-day job is a representation of the back-end company, right? So how do you manage that? ये जो teachers हैं आपके, आपने बोला सबसे ज़्यादा female employees आप लोग के पास ही हैं. So ground level पे these teachers, उनको मॉनिटर करना, ट्रेन करना, या बिल्डिंग दैट लेवल ऑफ ट्रस्ट कि जो फाउंडर्स का एक ड्रीम था, जो मिशन था, वो यहाँ तक ट्रांसलेट हो, एंड देन दैट इज ऑल्सो शोन टू दोज किड्स दैट कम इन टू द स्कूल्स एवरी डे.
This is such an important part of running this organization because हम सब corporate background से आए हैं जो senior leadership है TCF की in the management sense, and we apply the same kind of logic to it in the early years. KPIs, management frameworks, process systems, and that is super important. But these are 1,000 locations, very remote, run by a school leader, a principal, who is visited maybe 3 to 3.5 times every month from some representative from the area, region, zone, head office. That's it. Outside of the 3.5 visits, she's on her own. Every manager or every middle manager can game any KPI. And the biggest example of this was when we started saying, metric results should be very good. And we started looking at metric results really closely. We saw that metric results were rising, but the number of kids appearing in metric examinations was plateaued. And we expected growth. What was happening in some schools was that the principal was managing the metric results KPI, but holding some struggling kids back for another year before metric.
Okay.
And we learned that if we just manage through KPI and the principal does not own the outcome, the mission, the impact, then we have lost the battle. So we balance the focus on KPI with a lot of focus on culture. That means people like me and my senior team actually being in school, spending entire days with groups of principals, not even talking about schooling, but talking about life, talking about why TCF exists, talking about what we are here to do. And if they can own that mission, then we're golden. The difference, however, is ownership. You can exhort and lecture all you want, but do people own the mission or not? And what that means is authenticity. Am I accountable to a teacher if I walk into a school as the CEO? And if today you walk into any school and you don't have to announce your visit, you don't have to tell them beforehand, you can be an absolutely random visitor and ask them what is the organization like to you. They will probably say, ये हमारा घराना है, इसने हमें बहुत कुछ सिखाया है, not as a teacher, but as a person. And ये हमारा ख्याल रखते हैं. What does ख्याल mean? ख्याल means अगर COVID हुआ हुआ है or your schools are closed and most schools and NGOs can't pay salaries, we will not only pay salaries, we'll go to their homes to deliver cash. Right? So I was taking a donor through a school and they asked a similar question. They asked me, how do you take care of the teachers? And the principal said, मैं बताती हूँ.
Yeah.
आप इनको छोड़े, मैं बताती हूँ. And she told the story about how that process of their experience of being the only person who was getting a salary during COVID changed her employment in the eyes of her family members. So I feel अगर आप authentic होंगे अपने लोगों के साथ, उनमें इन्वेस्ट करेंगे, उनके लिए केयर करेंगे, मगर उनको ग्रो भी करेंगे, वो आपको ऐसा ऑन करेंगे कि there are principals who have been there for 10-15 years, they know every child, and if you ask the children who've been through those systems, they'll say, ये मैडम हमारे घर आई थी 3 दफा, मेरे वाले से ये लड़ी थी, उनको समझाया था कि मुझे ना निकाले, ये नहीं होती तो मैं आज यहाँ नहीं खड़ी.
Yeah.
I can't, or any organization can't deliver that. That's not the job description. So that, I think, that practical wisdom and ownership is really what culture can bring.
Yeah, I got a chance to visit a TCF school, I think, saal pehle, which is why I'm asking this, because when I was there, I could also feel it. Everybody was so proud and passionate, and मैंने कभी भी मैं इतने schools में गई हूँ कभी भी बहुत फीस देने के बाद भी
We've
मैंने
been to
कभी
schools.
ऐसी चीज़ मैंने नहीं experience की जहाँ बच्चे teachers everybody was so happy to be there, and that energy I think आप जब वहाँ सिर्फ visit करने जाते हैं आपको समझ आ जाती है. So that's a big achievement, I feel.
And shameless sort of plug for this visit thing, right? Because actually the experience, I can describe it till I turn blue, but the experience of watching that light in the eyes of the child and watching that teacher's passion is the difference actually viscerally कि अच्छा ये सिर्फ नौकरी नहीं कर रहा है, ये actually यहाँ खुशी से आ रहा है.
I also want to now talk a bit about research के दरम्यान मैं I came across this term loss learning कि when natural disasters happen आप लोग अक्सर ऐसे इलाकों में schools operate करते हैं जहाँ पे floods आ जाते हैं. अभी इस साल भी हुआ, COVID आ गया and all that. Then kids are not able to go to school sometimes for years, sometimes for months. तो फिर एक gap आ जाता है. So you have certain programs जिसमें then you focus on these kids. How did you come up with that idea? Why did you feel like ये gap है तो उसको हमने fill करना है, and how has the experience been so far?
So every day lost, even the summer vacation, frankly, research shows causes a dent in the momentum of the child's learning. There is no substitute for absolute hours spent in contact with learning. And when floods happen, it's not just the physical dislocation. अब आपकी फैमिली जिंदगी मौत का बेसिक राशन का की स्ट्रगल में इन्वॉल्व है. आपका पूरा फोकस हट हट जाता है. अब आप पेरेंट्स को पेरेंट्स टीचर मीटिंग के लिए नहीं बुला सकते, वो कहीं शेल्टर में है. Everything changes. We felt that even before learning loss was to be addressed, we needed to address what was going on emotionally inside these students. They had gone through trauma during COVID, seen loved ones pass away. They had gone through this massive a child is unable to understand. So we injected and incorporated socio-emotional learning elements in our program post COVID. As they were returning, we tried to teach girls and boys how to talk about your emotions, how to even be able to articulate them, say, express gratitude, express grief, express, loss. And I think that has continued even after COVID and floods. The learning loss is about engagement. So we used to send little magazines to their homes, organize small study groups in family sort of settings and communities. We did whatever we could. But really, when the kids came back, you don't go back to business as usual. You essentially focus on remediation. So you say, forget about what the syllabus says you should be doing at this time of the year. Let's go back to the concepts we had, addressed in the past and really thoughtfully build right back. I think बच्चों को not as subjects of some process, but इंसान के तौर पे as a गोश्त पोस्ट के emotional beings के तौर पे आप सोचें तो उस तरह ज़्यादा आप अचीव कर लेते हैं learning wise as well.
वन ऑफ द स्कूल्स में अक्सर कोर्स खत्म करने की रेस लगी हुई होती है ना. मार्च में एग्जाम्स हैं, आई हैव टू फिनिश दिस चैप्टर बाय दिस डे. इट डजंट मैटर बच्चे आ रहे हैं, समझ आ रही है नहीं आ रही है. सो
I want to say, there's a really useful quote कि हम पहले इम्तिहान को इस्तेमाल करते थे बच्चे को बेहतर बनाने के लिए. Or results in exams were meant to improve the child. Now we use children to improve the test results. We say तुम ट्यूशन जाओ, तुम ये करो, तुम बस यही सब कुछ कर लो ताकि there is at the end a piece of paper which says I as a parent
या
did my
या
job well. And उसमें वो उस बच्चे का ना सिर्फ balance but childhood, hours of boredom and wonder, hours to tinker, वो सब लॉस होता है. सो आई थिंक इट्स रियली रियली इम्पोर्टेंट कि हम इस पूरे लर्निंग प्रोसेस को मैकेनिकल और इंडस्ट्रियल ना बना दें.
इट्स ट्रू. सो नाउ मूविंग ऑन टू आवर नेक्स्ट गेमिंग चैलेंज. इट्स कॉल्ड द हॉट टेक चैलेंज. आई गिव यू सर्टेन स्टेटमेंट्स और आपने उसके ऊपर मुझे अपना एक ऑनेस्ट ओपिनियन देना है, इफ़ यू एग्री और डिसएग्री, एंड देन ऑल्सो इफ़ यू वांट टू गिव कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ व्हाई यू एग्री और डिसएग्री. आर यू रेडी? अच्छा, डिजिटल लिटरेसी इज नाउ मोर इम्पोर्टेंट देन ट्रेडिशनल लिटरेसी.
Yes and no. The part of traditional literacy which is pure reading and numeracy still super important. You can't access digital mediums without being able to read. But once you can, the whole journey of science, math, and everything else that we take kids through, I think we have to realize that now they have opportunities to access them themselves. And there, I think right after basic literacy and foundational literacy, you have to have them being comfortable and have access to digital learning.
AI tutors will outperform human teachers in low income communities.
No, I don't think so, ever. Imagine us shipping a bunch of tablets to a location, teaching all the kids how to use it, providing flawless connectivity, and leaving. I, as a human being who's 51 years old, cannot imagine engaging with that piece of machinery on and on just because I have to pass some test or whatever. I just, no matter how much you gamify it, human beings have to be engaged. And the gap is actually not just of knowledge transfer. It is a gap of engagement, of aspiration, of imagination. Nobody can do that, and nobody will be able to do that as well as a human person who cares for that child. I think we have to get over this sense of technology will solve for this, and get to a point where how do we enable people through technology to solve for this?
Technology alone cannot fix the learning crisis. This was the next
Yeah,
one.
sorry.
Yeah, we already get into it. So the biggest barrier of quality education is not affordability, it is mindset.
So I want to say it's not the affordability of education itself, but it is the economic challenge that families face. No problem, no question about it. For that strata, the choices are so stark and the
Yeah.
opportunity cost is so high that it's not that they don't want their children to be educated. They have to solve for food, for the next meal. Having said that, if we can provide them a longer term path where they can solve for the economic piece by incurring today's opportunity cost and sending their kids to school, they will bet on it. They will take that opportunity cost. They will work twice as hard themselves, those parents. But the path has to be credible.
It's true. So girls face double learning crisis. एक तो lack of access and then lack of encouragement.
So true. And I think we've seen the results of providing that validation, that encouragement. And it's not just girls who are students, young girls who are teachers.
Yeah.
We are going through a 2 month road show, nationwide, 32 massive events where we give awards to our teachers and our principals. Motivation is a huge thing in human existence, and we downplay. We tend to say we'll pay them more. It's not just I want to be known to have done a good job if I put something into it. And I think for every age, even people who are much older, I think appreciation and encouragement and motivation is a huge thing. And girls always get put down in our society. That's just a cultural rubbish that we have. So वो हमें बिल्कुल address करनी पड़ेगी.
So the real digital divide is not devices or internet, it is teacher capability.
True, but I don't think we should belittle the connectivity and device gap. I think there are people who are digital savvy now waiting for access to a phone in households where either the elder brother or even sometimes the younger brother will have it, the father will have it, but the mother won't have it, the young daughter will not have it. I think that is an issue. And even across beyond gender, class-wise, device and connectivity gaps are very large. So I wouldn't downplay that at all.
So most students in Pakistan are over-tested and under-taught.
Over-tested, yes. Over-taught also. I think what we call teaching is a lot of instruction and much less questioning, engagement. They're definitely over-tested in the sense that they have to rectify for those, but are they tested enough in terms of those faculties and those levels of comprehension being tested? Those things are under tested. So I mean, depends on what you call teaching and testing, but I think definitely the high stakes nature of exams has taken over. And I think it is a debilitating thing because we will soon have young people who will not buy into this whole academic journey which we have constructed.
Yeah. So AI will expose how weak our foundational learning actually is.
AI will maybe in the beginning paper over it because I can be horrible at reading and writing, but still solve for
Yeah,
it
yes.
through AI. But it may exacerbate those weaknesses because over time I don't need to use that muscle. I can write well with AI. And so writing and expressing oneself that way may end up being an underused muscle.
Good job on this segment as well, Zia.
I give very long answers. I'm really sorry.
No, they're nice. They're nice. We need that context. अच्छा now future की तरफ अगर हम चलें, so I would now like to touch upon the donation side of thing. You meet so many donors, and आपने शुरू में बात की ना, asking for money is not easy. But then आप एक बार नहीं बोलते. You have donors जो कि continuously every year, every month they come back and they don't just sponsor one kid. Sometimes they sponsor पूरे schools. So how does that happen? And now that we are moving towards this, new generation coming up, अब उन्होंने भी jobs करना शुरू किए. They also want to give their money to something meaningful. तो उनको कैसे आप pool के अंदर लेके आ रहे हैं? How are you winning their confidence and trust?
सो पहली तो चीज़ ये कि हम जो भी आपको सपोर्ट कर रहा है, जो भी आपको कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहा है, उसको एज़ अ सोर्स ऑफ मनी और एज़ अ ट्रांज़ैक्शन ना देखें। We, 3 years ago, I was in a cafe in Frankfurt talking to a group of potential supporters. And, now these folks are, especially the diaspora, so used to charities going out there and fundraising. They're like, अच्छा जी, आप बताएं आपका टारगेट कितना है और आपका इवेंट कब है और क्या करना है? And I was like, I don't have any event. I don't have a target. I've just come to meet you. And the idea is to make you owners of TCF. We look for owners, not donors. And what that means is, हमारी तो बेसिक जर्नी ही 11 साल की है। एक बच्चा केजी से मैट्रिक जाते जाते 11 साल लग जाते हैं। अगर मैं किसी से $1 मिलियन भी ले आऊं, अगले साल क्या करूंगा? दिस इज गार्डनिंग. दिस इज नॉट कि मैं बस ट्री प्लांट करके चला जाऊं, वो ट्री खुद ही अपना ख्याल रख लेगा. I need to nurture that school and that teacher and that child every day. So the donor must have that relationship with the organization and the school similarly. That can only happen if I bring them inside the circle. And I say, come and see this for yourself, question it, challenge it, continue to walk in at your will. We will not do everything you say because we are running a system, but own it and own it, warts and all. We are extremely open about our deficiencies, our mistakes, our challenges. But what that does is it brings everyone in. And so we essentially call ourselves not just an organization, but essentially a community, a movement. Because those are these 20, 30, 40,000 people all over the world. जिनसे आप पूछेंगे वो कहेंगे हाँ TCF.
Yeah.
I'm TCF. So that on one side is a human need. I've learned that when I'm going to ask for money, I'm not actually asking something for myself only. That person is struggling in their life to derive meaning and connect themselves to something bigger than themselves. And they don't have the time and the opportunity to do that. Giving is the biggest way you can do that. Not just money, but giving in every sense is the biggest way you can become part of something larger than yourself. And I think people have realized themselves through their engagement with TCF and other charities like that. So for me, after a while, it's like a family where you meet people again and again. And by the way, they're also giving.
Yeah.
And I know that to be true for a lot of communities all over the world when we talk about TCF chapters. For the new generation, we really wanted to replicate this. It's not a different need that people now don't feel. Sure, they may have come up the childhood may mean something different now, but human beings are human beings. So what we wanted to do was to create a digital experience for fundraising, which was reflecting this person to person dynamic. So what we developed was a platform where anybody could start a small fundraiser, a birthday campaign, anything, own a little part of the problem, and then go to their friends and family digitally and raise support for that little project. It could be tiny, it could be massive. And that has been a game changer for us. The other thing we have learned to do is that at scale, this person to person thing is hard, but people don't just interact in the physical sense. Digital storytelling, being able to have a two-way conversation digitally,
Yeah.
is also interaction and communication. So I think developing that muscle of telling the story with fidelity, with authenticity, That's something which is make or break for us. If we can keep telling these, we have 320,000 stories currently. You walk into a school, you pick any child and you say, आप कब family में क्या करते हैं, आपके लिए school क्या है, and you'll hear a story. And I think just authentically telling that creates that conversation with the new generation.
I think you guys also update the donors about the progress of whatever they're investing. Because my younger sister, she donates the money. और कभी कभार ऐसा होता है ना, because आपकी सैलरी में एक certain portion ही होता है जो आप दे सकते हैं. तो sometimes there's this conversation जिसमें मेरी अम्मी बोलेंगी इस महीने यहाँ दे दो वहाँ दे दो. But I've seen my sister like, no, there are 2 kids. They have to go to school. I can't. I can give extra money, but no, those kids have to go to school. And I'm like, इस age में इतनी एक ownership create करना, वो relationship build हुआ है
That's
ना.
true for every layer. If you go in the middle of the boondocks in Pakistan, there's a company running some factory somewhere. उस फैक्ट्री का ओनर विल थिंक कि ये जो TCF का स्कूल मेरे बाजू में है, ये मेरा स्कूल है. नॉट जस्ट बिकॉज उसका नाम उस ऊपर लिखा हुआ है, बट उससे अब उसकी एक रिलेशनशिप है. और वो हम भी जब उससे बात करते हैं तो वी डू इट विद द सेंस कि हम स्टीवर्ड्स हैं, बट ये आपका स्कूल है और ये आपका नेबरहुड है यार. तो देयर आर पीपल इन सैन फ्रांसिस्को who may have that level of ownership about a school in Kotri.
Yeah.
And they continue every year to learn कि वो स्कूल कैसे कर रहा है, उसके बच्चे कैसे कर रहे हैं, visit it, कोई उस community से fly in करता है, फिर वापस तस्वीरें लेके जाता है. That bond is real and it's not a contrived thing, it's a real thing.
It's not easy to achieve also because I've been in the marketing industry for a while. बिल्कुल आसान नहीं होता ये ownership create करना, but it's such a beautiful thing कि जो बंदा आपको पैसे दे रहा है, they feel like they're a part of it. I think maybe that is exactly why TCF has yes, done so well. Now I would like you to help me understand कि अगर हमने ये जो education का crisis है, learning का crisis solve करना है, what kind of bold decisions does the government need to take, or people as community we need to ensure कि वो हों, just so that we can address it. ये जो digital पाकिस्तान का जो हमारा ambition है वो actual में achieve हो with like the population that is well educated and well looked after also.
So it takes fundamentally ये समझने की जरूरत है कि ये power is a big transformational kind of power for good and bad. It has the capability of leveling this playing field for us. Here is this system, imagine करें कि बड़ी दुनिया की यूनिवर्सिटीज़ हैं, ब्रांड नेम यूनिवर्सिटीज़ हैं with entrance rates, acceptance rates of less than 5%, less than 3%. उधर तो अगर अमेरिका में यूनिवर्सिटी तो अमेरिका के बेस्ट किड्स भी नहीं जा पा रहे. हमने एजुकेशन को इतना रिंग फेंस्ड कर लिया है. And on the other side, there's this massive bottom of the pyramid around the world who have no access to this formal system. Technology can, and especially AI, can level this playing field if it is accessible. अगर वही चीज accessible नहीं होगी, अगर हम AI को ही ring fence कर देंगे, and there are many people who imagine AI as being the replacement for an aging population in the West, and they will keep progressing and the rest of the world will kind of lag behind. If that version of the future happens, then we have a real conflict globally and locally on our hands. But if we're able to democratize this a little bit and provide access, and which is within our grasp, so it can really then provide you leapfrog, जिस तरह मोबाइल फोन लीपफ्रॉग लैंडलाइंस, हम डिमांड नोटिस ही भरते रह गए और आखिर में हमारे हाथ में एक फ़ोन आ गया. उसी तरह ज़रूरी नहीं है कि आप उस टॉप टियर यूनिवर्सिटी के एडमिशन के लिए ही सोचते रहें और आपके पास लर्निंग ना आए. Given that, we believe that there is a lot for the system to do. We have to fix the points and the ways in which we will judge and assess people. So for instance, अगर हमारा assessment system, examination system, certification किसी को कहने का कि हाँ ये काबिल है, अगर वो थोड़ा सा बेहतर होता या इतना broken ना होता तो शायद हम यहाँ नहीं होते. People would have figured out, all of TCF moved to a better examination board a few years ago. Lots of kids and parents walked away because they didn't want to stop cheating and they didn't want to stop whatever. But we wanted to carve out a standard which then we aspire to and achieve. So examinations is a big space. But within the digital space, I really feel कि अगर हम AI की capabilities in terms of language, वो आपसे उर्दू, पंजाबी, सिंधी में बात कर सकता है. AI's capability of being personalized. दैट मीन्स दैट अगर 30 बच्चे क्लास में हैं और 2 बच्चे पीछे रह रहे हैं और क्लास में टीचर के पास इतना टाइम है ही नहीं
Yeah.
to remediate for them, that technology can really solve for. So there are all these massive opportunities, which where technology can fix the gaps and the problems being faced by educators. It's equally important not to imagine technology as solving any problem. Sometimes we have a solution searching for a problem, right? Um, every day I get a message or a call from someone, what are you doing with AI? So I have this AI kind of opportunity breathing down my neck
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
right?
Yes.
And the conception seems to be, so what if we don't have schools? So what if we have a shortage of teachers? Hand the child a tablet and we'll have solved this. Nowhere in the world, including Google, Khan Academy, no matter which version of this you look at, nowhere have we been able to replace a teacher or a facilitator in contact with the learner, right? Human beings are not built this way. So it's really important not to go after some, false hopes of how AI or tech will solve this. There are specific problems that need to be solved, that this powerful thing is capable of solving. उस पे focus करके invest करें. And I feel big companies also, like TCF, like telcos, and of course the enabling environment provided by the regulator. If we can solve, especially in those locations, for connectivity, for access, जहाँ human teachers and capability और भी ज़्यादा कम है, तो हम वो leapfrogging enable कर देंगे. हमें थोड़ा सी heavy lifting साथ मिलके करनी पड़ेगी. And I'm very eager to work with folks in the telco sector, with the government, on how TCF and other nonprofits in the education sector can kind of invest on their part, and the government can enable that as well.
Very important. That's true. Now moving towards the conclusion, हमारे दो traditions हैं. पहला वाला तो ये कि because we like to involve our audience in everything, तो anytime a guest comes and we have an opportunity to get something from them, we don't let it go. So you will have to do a giveaway. It can be anything that you like. And then we'll do a social media competition and people can participate, and then we'll select a winner, and then you will have to hand over the gift or the prize to them, जो कि आप ही decide करेंगे. So what will be your giveaway?
So I can think of a bunch of giveaways of physical things, including a wonderful book that a volunteer wrote about TCF, Agents of Change. It was co-written by one of our volunteers who put his life into volunteering for TCF. He passed away recently, as well as one of our alumni. They co-wrote that book. It's called Agents of Change, and I would love to give that. But I would give that to someone who would be eager or interested in spending a few days with us. They can do a small project with me. They can do an internship with me at TCF, remotely or physically. I would love to have that opportunity to share what's TCF from the inside with someone who wants to engage with that opportunity.
So maybe when we announce it, people can write in the comments why they're passionate about this whole thing, and based on the good answer हम उनको
Yeah,
choose कर
that would be
सकते
a
हैं.
great idea.
We're just trying to find the next Zia for TCF actually.
Okay.
Right? So interesting. So that will be the giveaway. Acha, the final tradition, you have to answer a question that the last guest left you, and then you have to leave a question for the next guest. हमें नहीं पता कौन होंगे, so it can be anything. So interestingly, the question जो हमारे last guest ने छोड़ा, they talked about in their conversation how Pakistan is not as bad and not as hopeless as we paint it to be. So they said कि please ask the next guest कि उनका क्या एक authentic opinion है on what this country is. Do they see it as, बस जो we're going towards an end, or do you still see hope?
I'm so shocked by what you just said. I missed the last episode. And as you were saying that hum ye karte hain, this is the kind of question that I would ask as well. I think it is central to what we're experiencing today. The crisis of hope is really fundamental right now. Um, I live in Karachi, so people tell me all the time it's never been this bad. And I'm 51 years old. I'll say भैया बहुत खराब था। ऐसा नहीं है कि इससे खराब नहीं था, इससे कई ज्यादा गुना खराब था. People could not come out of their houses. They would lose family members as if it was a war zone. Human beings don't count their blessings as they accrue to them. So we live in a very blessed state. And I want to also say the people who complain the loudest are the ones who are the most blessed and have the least to complain about.
Yeah.
People like me who frankly live like royalty in this country. The lifestyle we enjoy, Alhamdulillah, right? We are not just blessed by material things, but we are blessed to be in a space where people still care for people. कराची जैसे शहर में मैं आपको बता दूं कि there is so little state. If you imagine this being the case in many Western countries, there'd be widespread looting. But the city functions. You know, a few weeks ago they introduced e-challans.
Yeah, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Big story. People are so amazed that now people are following rules. Of course they're following rules. These people have been all over the world and they follow their rules. And people want to follow rules. They just don't want to be the biggest fool who's waiting at the traffic light while everybody is zipping past them. Yes. So if we can establish a system of not just equal opportunity, but any access to opportunity, I think this is a beautiful place and we have a wonderful future. I'm especially hopeful because our young people have much more talent than our generation did, and they have the capability to shape it much more than we did. The world is also, sometimes chaos and being a little shaken affords you unique opportunities. And the world is going through transformation, both from a geopolitical sense as well as AI. So I genuinely feel that not just it can be better, but हमारे एक फाउंडर कहते हैं कि अगर आप अपनी पूरी नियत से काम कर रहे हैं, आप पूरी मेहनत कर रहे हैं, आप God is with you. You're doing things which are for the better. You don't just hope or dream. You have to believe. You must believe. And we believe कि ये है ही, ये कोई हो ही नहीं सकता कि बेहतर ना हो. The arrow we in TCF are shooting in the air will land when we will not be alive. Because ये 2 दिन का काम है ही नहीं. But we have complete faith कि वो जहाँ लैंड करेगा वो एक अच्छी जगह होगी और ये जो बच्चे होंगे ये अपनी कम्युनिटीज को और अपने खानदानों को उठाएंगे और लिफ्ट करेंगे. So I'm very hopeful.
Great answer, yeah, great answer. And what will be the question that you would like to leave for the next guest?
So I take this piece and I think there are 2 or 3 things which are the ingredients for change. One is, do I look beyond myself? Am I a sovereign individual or do I have love and care for people outside of me? Second is this thing, do I think there is possibility or do I have hope get something better? The third thing, which is really important, is can I do something myself? Can I translate this care and this hope into some action? I don't think it means leaving your job to work for a nonprofit. You can be a corporate leader, you can be a homemaker. What is the one thing that we can do in our individual sense to actually realize that sense of a better society or a better community or even a better kind of context or company that we're working in? What is the one thing that you can do plausibly which will make that a better place?
वेरी नाइस क्वेश्चन. आई थिंक ये तो जितने लोग एपिसोड देख रहे हैं वो भी अगर अपने आप से पूछे हैं तो यू आर सच अ नेचुरल एट इट, नाउ आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड यू बीइंग इन अ रूम and then people saying कि take all my money. I can really imagine that happening.
No, there are better people than me, let me say.
No, but you really know how to make people think about the impact that they can have, and that's not all bad. So it's a great thing. It was a great conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Lovely
much
being here.
for letting us know ये organization चलती कैसे है, and it's great to learn a bit more about the people behind it as well. And I hope कि इसी तरह से आप लोग thrive करते रहेंगे. I mean, with you at the top, I think you guys are sorted. But I would have made the pitch myself, but after this conversation, I've realized you are so good. So we will give you a moment to talk to our audience, and there are many people who can afford to actually help you in your mission as well. So maybe we'll do a call for them also donating whatever they can, and maybe securing someone's future.
Right.
So-
I think I would ask for a broader kind of support. Just like I talked about that conversation in that cafe in Frankfurt. It's not about you just donating something. Go to the websites www.tcf.org.pk, and there's a tab there which is get involved. Get involved can mean donating. Get involved can mean being part of one of our 5 6 different volunteer programs. It can take any shape, and there is a way of involving yourself with TCF which coexists with your life, whether, like you said, you're a busy executive or you're a student or whatever. Don't be a passive onlooker while this country kind of trundles on its path. We underestimate the impact we can have. With with you, that trajectory gets a little bit of a nudge towards the better. So, and just an inch now is a mile later on. So just get involved. It's www.tcf.org.pk.
Okay. Thank you so much, Zia, for your time.
Thank you
It
so
was a
much.
lovely
Loved
conversation.
having the conversation.
I hope you guys also enjoyed the conversation, and like me, you were leaving it feeling a bit more hopeful and positive. If you had fun, do mention it in the comments, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye.